I was on a cross-country road trip with a colleague. We were driving through West Texas on a major highway. In the area we were, even the major highway was pretty desolate. There had been a truck stop or a gas station about every 100 miles. These weren't really towns, the exits, just places to get more gas to get to the next gas station. It was pretty late at night, and she had been driving for like 4 hours. I usually can drive for about 8 before I'm tired out, but she could only manage 4 or 5 before it was my turn again. We were also getting low on gas at about a quarter tank, and you learn from road trip to fill up when you get the chance. So she was looking for a gas station as we drove along. And it's really corny, but we were talking about fate and destiny and some other weird shit at the time. That kind of conversation gets me keyed up and worried, so I was trying to change the subject. She took an exit while we were talking, and I got out my coffee mug so I could fill up for my turn driving. We pulled into a typical Nowhereville gas station, just a station and a trailer out back. I assume thinking back, it was probably where the people who owned it lived. There was another car parked in front of the doors off to one side. We got out, still talking, and walked up to the double doors, each of us grabbing a door handle. The doors were locked and I turned and looked around to see if there was a sign. Sometimes places will put up a back in 5 minute sign, but I noticed several things in succession. The coffee maker in one side was halfway done brewing a fresh pot of coffee. The monitors that showed the store were visible from outside where we were, but all of them were showing static, and there was a splash of bright red on the door in the back of the place, which was closed. I suddenly realized I was looking at a huge streak of blood with handprints in it. Every hair on my neck stood up. My friend began shaking the door, yelling, "We need to get gas!" But I had already turned and walked away from the doors. "We have to leave, now!" I grabbed her arm and started propelling her back to the car. Now, I noticed the other car in the lot. It had no plates, and it was dingy and had dents. There was an empty gun rack in the window of it. I ran to the car, dragging her with me. She seemed to take forever to open her door and get in. She still had the keys. The whole time she kept saying, "But we need gas," while I tried to explain to her, "There is blood in there, blood." After what seemed like a year, she pulled the car out, and when we were backing up, I saw through the windows that the back door in the gas station was opening. We pulled away before anyone came out, thankfully. I freaked out until we were 20 miles down the highway. I tried to call the police but had no signal. I didn't get a phone signal until we had driven about 40 miles and got to a truck stop. Again, not in a town, just a building on its own in the middle of nowhere. I called the cops, they thanked me, and I never heard anything about it again. To this day I feel like if I hadn't freaked out, we probably would have met the robber or whoever it was in that back room. I also wish I had been able to find out what the hell had happened there. It was a Chevron station somewhere in the western part of Texas, at least within about 100 miles. I lived in New Mexico for several years before moving to the Midwest. My friend Amy and I, both females, would spend many days exploring the remote corners of New Mexico, discovering abandoned ghost towns and enjoying the quiet and desolate beauty of the desert. One afternoon in March 2010, we were traveling from Ruidoso to Albuquerque, always up for exploring, and we took a back road rather than traveling the more direct highway. One leg of our journey had us on NM 55. It's a remote teeny tiny 2-lane highway. We loved those types of roads up until that day. This part of New Mexico is flat and desolate desert. You can see for miles, and there is virtually nothing except dirt and rock between towns, and towns can be miles apart. So, we were on NM 55 going north. After a few minutes we saw a white pickup truck up ahead of us going the same direction. Suddenly, he stopped his truck sideways in the middle of the highway, blocking both lanes. We were about a mile away from him, and as we got closer, we began to get uneasy. We could see no reason for him to do this. We were the only other vehicle out there, and we began wondering if we should turn around rather than come up to him and have to stop. We were about a half a mile away from him when he pulled over to the opposite side of the highway, but his truck was still pointed in the direction we were going. We tried to relax a little. Surely this guy was a rancher or something. Maybe he was checking something on his land. As we passed him, we noticed a few things. 1. There was only one person in the truck, a middle-aged guy who never took his eyes off of us. And 2, he was talking into a walkie-talkie. A few seconds after we passed him, he pulled back onto the highway and started following us. But he never got too close. He would get to within a few car lengths and then drop back a little and then speed back up again to within a few car lengths. We were getting a little nervous and we realized how alone we really were. We had seen no other traffic on that road and we hadn't told anyone about our great idea to take this detour. We checked our cell phones and neither one had signal, typical for remote New Mexico, but scary given our present situation. Amy was driving and speeding up, while I frantically checked the map, hoping to find a road that would have more traffic. There was no other road. We had to travel on this one to get to the next town, which was Mountain Air. Turning around to go back the other way didn't seem like a good option. After a few minutes, we saw another pickup truck coming towards us. He was going very, very slowly, maybe 20 miles per hour, if that. This pickup was old and beat up, whereas the one behind us was newer. Amy had us up to 75 miles per hour, and we blew by the old pickup. As we passed it, we saw that it was another middle-aged guy, and he was talking into a walkie-talkie. After the white pickup behind us passed him, he pulled a U-turn and pulled in behind it. As we watched all of this, we could see the white pickup truck guy talking into his walkie-talkie. No doubt these two knew each other. We were being deliberately followed, and for the first and only time in my life, I felt hunted. They stayed right behind us. We watched for obstacles in the road, and we truly thought old beat-up pickup truck guy had set up a trap in the road and our vehicle would be disabled somehow. We talked about driving into the fields as we were in an SUV, but this was obviously their territory and we were afraid of what would happen if we went off-road and got cornered. So we stayed on the highway. By now, white pickup truck guy was right on top of us. We could see him talking into the walkie-talkie and he stayed right on our bumper. And old beat-up pickup truck guy was right on top of him. The three of us sped down the highway. The white pickup inched closer. His maneuvering and edging closer made it apparent that he was trying to bump us. I watched helplessly as he got to within inches of our back bumper. Amy floored it. We were passing 80 miles per hour and edging towards 90 miles per hour. The road was flat and deserted, but any little thing going wrong would have been catastrophic, and we absolutely were not going to slow down or stop if we could help it. The white pickup pulled into the opposite lane and started to gain speed. The only thing we could think of was that he wanted to pass us and get in front of us. If he got in front of us and his body was behind us, then we'd be boxed in and trapped. And we looked frantically at the rocky desert on both sides of us. Our only option was to off-road it. Should we risk it? Could we speed through the desert and make it to safety in one piece? As we topped a small incline, we saw a sign that said Salinas Pueblo Missions National Monument, and it pointed towards a road on the left. And right at that moment, a blue pickup truck pulled out of that road and onto the highway in front of us. As we came up on the blue pickup, we saw the plates said U.S. Park Service. We looked at each other and then looked behind us. Both pickup trucks did U-turns and went the other way. We followed the blue pickup to Mountain Air and then made our way to Albuquerque. I don't know exactly what those guys' intentions were, but they weren't good. There is something seriously wrong out there. I notified the state police and they said that they would keep an eye on things.